Welcome to Your Mac Life for Wednesday, March the 2nd, 2016. I'm Shawn King. Stuff just keeps happening. Don't worry about it. I fixed it in post. Yeah, you're hearing the music through my headphones, so don't worry about it. Folks, on tonight's show, we're going to have our good friend Jim Dalrymple of The Loop at loopinsight.com joining us, talk about the Apple and the FBI and that kind of stuff. But we're also going to have our compatriot on the loop, Dave Mark, is going to be joining us talking about the congressional hearings. Dave did a really good job on Twitter yesterday, live tweeting the congressional stuff that he was watching. Excuse me. And we're going to talk to him about that. We're talking to him about his thoughts about what happened, and talk to him about what he thinks is going on with all of this issue. This is an important issue. This is an important thing to talk about and to think about and to get opinions about. So we'll talk to Dave about that. We're also going to, the last week's show, or a couple weeks ago, I apparently did a really crappy job of explaining aperture to you folks, and our good friend Ron Klutz, the official pilot of Your Mac Life, called me out on it, and thank you very much for that, Dave, Ron. And I'll try to do a better job explaining aperture on tonight's show. As I was saying in the pre-show, one of the hallmarks of Your Mac Life has always been our audience participation, interaction via email. You can always email me to during the show to onair@yourmaclifeshow.com. You can also email me during the week to Shawn@yourmaclifeshow.com. During the live version of the show, if you've never had a chance to participate in the live version, if you can, it'd be great. We do an IRC chat room. If you go to the website at yourmaclifeshow.com, right there below the video, our good friend Monty has set it up, so all you do is type a name in, and you can watch the IRC directly below the video for the show. Last week, last Monday, a week ago Monday, I heard about this other app called Telegram. Telegram.org is the website. And it's a messaging client, more full-featured than IRC, Internet Relay Chat. It's tough to describe. One of the great things about it is that it's cross-platform. They have versions for not only the Mac OS, but also for Android, for your iPhone, for your iPad, for the browser. So if you just wanted to use it in a web browser, you could do it there. They've got a Linux version of this thing, so there's all kinds of different ways for you to access Telegram. And one way you can just use it as like an instant messaging client. So you have friends who don't have iPhones, don't have Macintoshes, don't use iMessage. You can use this to send text messages back and forth if they're using the same client. But they've also got a group feature. We've been playing around for a while with the group feature of Telegram. And if you go to the website at yourmaclifeshow.com, you can see a link to join the Your Mac Life group. And we're probably going to transition IRC into Telegram. I think we're going to have both, because there's still some folks who are going to prefer IRC. But Telegram is kind of cool because it offers a lot more than what IRC does. So, for example, in IRC, when I type in a URL and send it, it's just a URL link. But when I type in a URL in Telegram, it usually shows a little blurb of the link. So if it's a news story, it'll have a couple sentences of the news story. Graphics show up what's called inline. So when you add a link to a graphic in Telegram, it shows up in the window. You can use emojis in Telegram. You can use stickers, which I don't like because they're freaking huge. There's all kinds of different things. We're going to do more, I think, with Telegram as the weeks go by. So right now we're testing it out. I encourage you guys who are in the Telegram room to poke around, play around, do stuff in it, not try to break it, but just have some fun in the Telegram room and see what you guys can do. Mosquito says, I'll miss IRC, but as long as I can see the text better, Telegram is pretty. It definitely is visually more appealing than IRC. And it's also much easier to get into from a client point of view. Again, Monty has set up our IRC to be really, really easy to use. You just go to the website and type in a name. But the Telegram clients allow you to get into these kind of rooms really easily, and they can also see a lot. You can do a lot more things. For example, I just got a text from Scott Thrift, says, "Hey, I finally can see a live show." So Scott, welcome to the live version of Your Mac Life. Dave D says IRC commands are pretty arcane. Yeah, they can be. They certainly can be a little confusing to a lot of folks. I think IRC tends to be intimidating to people, where from what I've heard from folks who are getting into Telegram, it's very easy to access it initially and to start using it. So, and anyone knows of a cheat sheet for Telegram, Dave D is talking about the IRC cheat sheet he made. If anyone knows of a Telegram cheat sheet, send it to me on air at yourmaclifeshow.com and let me know where that is online. I know our friend Kenny in Telegram is going to work up something, so we'll see if we can't get a cheat sheet to help folks. But as Monty points out, most people don't need any IRC commands. Once you get here, you just type. That's true. Once you get into IRC, it's very easy to use. So anyway, there's that. On next week's show, see if I can't pull this up. These folks at Oristan, which is a company here in Vancouver, sent me their Oristan, how to describe it? It's a standing desk. And it's real simple to use. I mean, it's just literally it's a piece of cardboard. There's nothing fancy about it. It's kind of interesting. It's not for me. I'll say that right off the bat, but not because of anything wrong with the Oristan. The problem with the Oristan for me is, as they say, it's designed specifically for people from about 5 feet tall to 6 feet tall. Well, I'm 6'3", and using it in the way it's supposed to be used, I had my wrists were bent at an awkward angle. Even after only about half an hour, I could feel the strain in my wrist trying to type on it. It's an interesting idea, though, and at $25, it's a really neat way to see if a standing desk is something that you want to be able to play around with, to see if it's something that you can actually use. $25 is dirt cheap. It's cardboard. It can't stand a whole lot of abuse. It can't get liquid on it or else again. The other problem is it's not designed for a full-size keyboard and a mouse. It's more for a compact keyboard. But I've been playing around with it. I'll play. Hang on. This is it. This is literally it. It's just a piece of good, solid cardboard. And so that's basically what it is. Here's the ledge for your keyboard and then your laptop, although I put an iMac, a full 27-inch iMac on this, and it seems to stand up pretty well. So I'll be testing that again, and on next week's show we'll talk more about that. Later on in the show, as I said, we'll be talking to Dave Mark from The Loop at loopinsight.com about his tweeting yesterday with regards to the congressional hearings with Apple, the FBI, and the Justice Department. But up next, we're going to talk to our good friend Jim Dalrymple of The Loop at loopinsight.com. This is Your Mac Life.
So did you get it figured out?
I got it figured out eventually. Yeah, by the way, you're on the air, so don't curse too much. Actually, no, go ahead and curse. What the hell am I saying?
I'm going to change for you?
Yeah, exactly. That's right. Yeah, it turned out it was a setting in Google Hangouts. It had nothing to do with my frickin' mixing board or anything I was doing. Google Hangouts, for no apparent reason, just changed the setting on me.
Oh, sure. Blame Google.
Well, why not? We just finished talking to Dave Mark from The Loop about the congressional hearings, and I'm pretty sure you have nothing to add, do you?
No, Dave's a pretty smart guy. I mean,
he understands this stuff a lot more than you and I do. That's for sure.
It's about time you get somebody smart on the show.
Well, I can't have anyone show me up all the time. That's why I have you on.
Well, makes sense to me.
Exactly. Have you seen this story? This is something I've been ranting about for the last 24 hours. San Francisco hippies prepare to make Canada great again if Donald Trump wins. Have you been hearing this story about how the people are going to move to Canada if so-and-so wins?
Yeah.
Piss off!
Yeah.
My country is not your second choice for prom.
Yeah. Well,
We see this all the time. We saw when Obama was being elected. All these right wing folks are, we're moving to Canada, which is really stupid for right wingers saying they're moving to Canada to avoid Obama. But even now with these left wingers saying they're going to move to Canada to avoid Trump, no, stay in your own goddamn country and fix your own goddamn problems.
We have enough of our own political problems.
Jeez, that just annoys the shit out of me.
But the difference is Canada's elections take like 6 weeks and they're done.
That's right.
They spend a political party will spend maybe $150
and on beer,
and then you elect somebody.
Mm-hmm.
It's not all of this rigmarole that happens in the U.S. And we have the same complaints about our politicians that they have in the U.S.
Yep.
But I don't know. I think everybody has complaints about politicians.
And I don't think any other country does this. I don't see Canadians saying, "Oh, we're gonna move to the U.S. because we elected Trudeau." I think it's just Americans who stay in your own goddamn country, fix your own problems before you start bringing them up here. You posted in the Loop. This has got to be the most interesting thing I've read in the Loop in probably 5 years. It is Apple's March event. Sources in positions to know tell BuzzFeed News Apple has settled on March 21st as the day it will show off a handful of new products. Now, that is a rumor. And usually rumors, when posted by Jim Dalrymple of The Loop, warrant one word, either a yep or a nope. This time, you got positively verbose when you said, "This sounds right to me." What's going on?
Well, I'm using the English language a bit more.
Why start now?
I don't know. I mean, why not?
So again, I want to make it clear, this is a rumor, but you believe this is a true rumor. This has a basis in fact.
Sounds good to me.
Now, usually we've taken your yes or nope as confirmation. Sounds good to me. Just seems like you're just agreeing with the rumor.
It sounds right to me.
Bastard. We go through this all the time. You're such a jerk.
Yeah, I've been told that.
Let's move on. It seems like in the last couple of days, this story has popped up on people's radar. Apple Connect. And I had completely forgotten about Apple Connect. Is Apple Connect an abject failure on Apple's part?
Well, Apple Music. Apple Connect isn't that part of the developer program? Are you talking about Apple Music Connect?
Apple Music Connect, yes.
Yeah. I don't go there. The only ones that post there are Apple and Steven Tyler.
That's right. I didn't even know Steven Tyler posted there. But isn't this just ping all over again?
Yeah.
I don't understand how Apple can keep screwing up social.
Well, they don't do social.
That's what Connect was supposed to be. It was supposed to be the way Apple described it was a way for artists to connect with artists to connect with their fans to connect with each other, fans to connect with artists. The promise of it was kind of cool. These artists would give you behind-the-scenes stuff, and there'd be chats, and there'd be all kinds of really cool stuff, and it is just tumbleweeds going through there. Nobody uses it. Is this yet another embarrassment for Apple?
Well, I don't know if it's an embarrassment. I mean, the fact that Apple Music didn't work should have been an embarrassment. But the fact that Connect doesn't work, nah, I don't know that anybody really expected it to work. I mean, let's be honest. I didn't expect Connect to work.
No.
And I use music all the time, and I'm so ho-hum about Connect that if they took it out tomorrow, the only reason I'd notice that it was gone is that there'd be an icon missing.
That's right. Even then, you probably wouldn't even notice the icon missing.
That's it. I don't use it. I have tried. I have looked in there, and besides Steven Tyler and Apple, I don't see anybody posting. So yep. I don't get it. There's nobody in there posting that I want to see, and clearly it's not showing up on my feed. But
Doug Pasnak in our Telegram room says this isn't screwing up social. Apple can't force people to participate.
Well, yeah, it's still it's Apple Music's social arm,
Yep.
and that's what they're trying to get the bands to do, so that they can get people to interact with them on Connect, and it's not connecting. There is no Connect. I mean, I think Apple hoped that Connect would be it never worked.
Yeah, it's Apple's responsibility to at least prime the pump for Connect. I mean, if Apple had gone
they tried. I mean, clearly they did something with Steven Tyler, because he was posting like crazy.
Yep.
And Apple's own channels have tried. And it just doesn't work, because I don't think that's what people really were looking for, or they're doing the wrong kind of social.
Mm-hmm.
And it's unfortunate.
Yeah, it is. You posted on the Loop today, ex-Google CEO Eric Schmidt to lead Pentagon board on technology. Did that headline scare you?
Oh, geez, it still scares me. I mean, like I said in there, but the screens on the Sherman tanks are now going to show ads. I mean, what's it going to be? Hey, we see you're interested in kebabs. I mean,
dear.
Come on.
Yeah, it's one of those stories that makes me think that some of these companies don't understand what is commonly known as the optics of situations. This just looks bad to have, even though he's the ex-CEO of Google, to have a former Google person involved in making the Defense Department tech savvier. It just feels like a weird story.
Yeah. Yeah, everybody will have Android soon, and then the government won't need to worry about breaking into iPhones, because you can break into an Android phone.
You post in the Loop, the DX1 iPhone camera has been updated. Have you ever posted a review of the DX1 iPhone camera?
No.
I promised a while back.
I use it a lot, though.
And I've never seen any pictures of it. I know you like it.
I posted some pictures. I love it.
Okay.
I think it's great. It's a great camera.
Is the review coming at some point?
Well, I don't know.
I hope so. I'm interested in your opinion about it, because it's an interesting device. It's not a professional camera, so I'm not that interested in it, but because it does seem to be a good concept for folks like you, people who aren't professional photographers, folks who don't need or don't want a big fancy camera, that you're happy with the kind of photos that you take. It's interesting to see what kind of appeal this thing has to you. So I keep looking for that review, and I don't see it.
Keep looking.
All right, fine, be that way. See if I care. You big meanie. Folks, we're talking about the DX1. It's an add-on to your iPhone, isn't it? It's the camera itself.
Oh, it is a camera itself now.
Oh, yeah. Is it? Okay. I
it is. Yeah, but it is an add-on to your iPhone. It plugs into the Thunderbolt port, or the Lightning port. Okay. But now, as of today, with the new update, it can take standalone pictures. And you can frame the pictures in the little screen and stuff like that. But it's really good. I mean, it's got a lot of settings in there that you can adjust, the aperture and things like that. So, yeah.
The story that Google self-driving car was involved in a minor accident was posted on the Loop. You said, certainly not a major issue, and a reasonable explanation from Google. Are people blowing this out of proportion? There seems to be a lot of folks are thinking this is the death of self-driving cars.
Oh no! I as much as self-driving cars freak more, I didn't see it as a big issue. I mean, the fact is the car was going 2 miles an hour, and the way that Google explained it led me to believe that there was a lane closed, and the guy that was piloting the car moved out because he thought the bus would yield, and the bus didn't, and they basically scraped. It wasn't an accident or anything. So no, I mean, the fact that there was even a story on it shows that people are looking for any failure. But I didn't see it as a big deal, really. I mean, left to its own devices, the car probably wouldn't have gotten in the accident. It was the guy behind the wheel that did it. So,
yeah, these kinds of things are inevitable. Until we get perfectly controlled self-driving cars that everybody uses, this is the way it's going to happen. Things are going to bump into each other. And luckily, like you said, it was this low-speed accident. It was a completely minor thing. I think it's, again, one of those things that just got blown out of proportion by any number of media outlets.
Yeah, I didn't see it as a big deal, really.
One of the things that a lot of folks pointed out during the Congressional hearing yesterday was that it seems to have encouraged a lot of people to change their numeric passcodes on their iPhone. Have you changed yours? You still have a 4-number passcode on your iPhone?
I do.
So none of this stuff has changed your mind, has it?
No. No, nobody's coming for my phone, so.
Do you know how long it would take to hack into your phone with a 4-number code?
10 years.
10 years?
Yeah.
I actually asked one of our listeners, Ziggity Zoo, about this on the iPhone, and I said, how long would it take to guess a 4-character numeric passcode? 14.8 minutes. Minutes!
Why?
Because it's only four numbers. A computer can go through 4 numbers in less than 15 minutes. Now,
yeah, but that's assuming that, I mean, who's going to come take my phone and use a computer to hack it?
You know what the difference is between a 4-character, 4-number code and a 6-number code in the length of time it takes to hack?
What?
From 15 minutes, add 2 more digits, it's 25 hours. That's still not very much time, is it?
Well, it's not.
If you changed it to alphanumeric code, in other words, numbers and letters, a 4-character alphanumeric code would take 333 hours, and a 6-character alphanumeric code takes 146 years. That's math, baby.
Okay. So I go back to the same thing again. Let's say that I have a 4-digit code and somebody takes my phone and spends 15 minutes to hack into it.
Yes.
When they do that, they're going to be pretty pissed off because there's not going to be anything in there for them to see. And they're going to say, I just wasted 14.8 minutes of my time to do this.
Yep. Scott Thrift points out, I really should change my passcode. I've had the same one since the iPhone 3GS.
Yeah, and I know his passcode, so yeah, you should change it.
But it's definitely something that we'll look at a little bit later on the show, folks, is how to change your passcode to a longer one and a stronger one. So make sure you do that. And finally, this has got to be the dumbest thing. I talked about this maybe 2-3 weeks ago. This app, what's it called? It's called the most dangerous writing app in the world.
See?
You click the start button. This is a web-based, a browser-based app, and you click the start button, and you tell it how long you want to write for. So say you want to write for 20 minutes. Once you click the start button, it says, don't stop typing or all progress will be lost. If you stop typing after 5 seconds, it deletes everything you've written.
Why would you do that?
Why would you do that? That seems to me to be the stupidest application ever.
I don't understand. I really do not understand.
Honest to God, I have no clue why someone would have encoded this app.
Now, see, now I'm getting upset.
Why would you want to force yourself to have a 5-second time limit or everything gets deleted? This is bizarre.
It is bizarre.
It's called the most dangerous writing app.com. Check it out. But don't use it.
I'm not going to use it.
It's stupid. It's utterly idiotic.
What if I have to sneeze?
Exactly. Or go to the bathroom.
Wow.
Oh, dear.
Well, I just set the timer for 10 seconds at a time.
Exactly. Just because you can code something doesn't mean you should code something.
Yeah, really.
Folks, been talking to Jim Dalrymple of The Loop at loopinsight.com. He has his own podcast, The Dalrymple Report, and Amplified, both available on the iTunes Store. I would encourage you to subscribe and to leave a review. Jim, thanks for joining me, buddy. Appreciate you sticking through all the audio issues I had earlier.
No problem. Glad to get worked out.
All right, see you, buddy. Bye. Welcome back, folks. Thanks very much for joining us here on the show. I am Shawn King. This is Your Mac Life. In our phone now, we've got our good friend Dave Mark from also The Loop. Dave, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you, Shawn?
I am good. Well, no, I'm shitty, but let's not get into that.
Sorry about that.
For the audience members who aren't familiar with who you are, give us the 30-second background on who Dave Mark is.
Well, I'll tell you, they might know me from very long ago. I've written a whole bunch of developer books, Apple-related developer books, starting from programming the original Mac and then moving on to different languages, learn C on the Mac, and then an iPhone book that was beginning iPhone development, and that was a whole series. I also do a lot of writing, obviously, writing for The Loop. And I build code, and I do a lot of entrepreneurial things. I've built a couple of companies, and I invest in startups. So that's me.
Where are you physically located? Just out of curiosity.
Right outside Washington, D.C.
Oh, okay. All right, cool. So are you a political animal by nature?
I'd say yes. I really enjoy. I love elections, and this election is just unbelievable
to me. You're a sick, disturbed young man. You know that? You are not well.
But yeah, I actually do love politics, but this hearing yesterday was amazing to me.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Sorry, Dave. I'm all messed up here.
You're flummoxed.
Yeah, I really am. This thing has thrown me for a loop. Explain to the audience who may not be familiar with it. What was the hearing yesterday?
So, Congress is the House of Representatives and the Senate, and the House of Representatives has a committee, the Judiciary Committee, and the Judiciary Committee had a hearing where they basically invite witnesses, and when you get an invitation, you don't turn it down. So they mandatory invite witnesses to come and testify. And basically, they're trying to get to the heart of some matter or another. In this case, this is about the hearing, the court order from the FBI for Apple to unlock the phone of the terrorist who is dead, but has an iPhone 5C that was used as part of the shooting in San Bernardino, California. Okay. So the FBI, I'm sure everybody's familiar with the story where the FBI basically got a court order together saying, "Hey, Apple, you need to find a way to get us into that phone because we can't do all the codes that are necessary because every time we enter a code, it slows down a little bit more and and it's possible the phone will wipe itself if we enter the code. So we want you to build some software that will bypass the Touch ID code entering mechanism so that we can use a computer to automate the process and break into the phone." And Apple said, "Well, we're not going to do that." And so that started a battle. The FBI got a court order for ordering Apple to do it, and then Apple fought that. the same room here and talk about this. So some of the players who they had in the room, they had the director of the FBI, whose name is Comey, C-O-M-E-Y, Comey, who is obviously on the FBI side. And then that was like its own hearing. So they had Comey sit in a chair, and they asked. So the way it works is in a congressional committee, in a hearing like this, every person on the committee gets 5 minutes, and they just step down the row, and each one of them gets 5 minutes to ask Comey, in this case, all the questions they want to ask. And then when their time's up, they'll usually give, that last question, they'll give Comey a little extra time to answer, to respond to the question. It was like that.
Now, hang on. ArcSign asked the question in the RC chat room, is this new information? I hadn't heard that the phone was actually used during the shooting.
Well, I actually can't tell you that the phone was used. I don't really know the background of when the phone was used, but an excellent point, Art. But to return to the hearing here, so the first half of the hearing was all questions were directed to Comey, and it was just Comey, right? The second half of the hearing, they had three people. They had Sewell. Bruce Sewell is Apple's senior VP and general counsel, so sort of like the head lawyer for Apple, right? Susan Landau is a professor at Worcester Polytechnic, and Cyrus Vance, I believe, is the Manhattan District Attorney, but he's a prosecutor of some stripe in New York. And so they had all three of them sort of sitting almost side by side at tables. And then the questions were willy-nilly distributed between the three. So the first half was all about the FBI side of the story. The second half was the three of them sort of talking it out. And I'd say the biggest surprise to me of the whole setup was how almost hostile they were to the FBI, and how sort of friendly isn't quite the right word, but it felt friendly to Apple. Right, they were on. They clearly were, and if not on Apple's side, they were on the side of privacy, because this really was an argument about privacy. They wanted Apple to basically weaken encryption by building a system that would allow the FBI to bypass the encryption on the phone, not necessarily decrypt the contents, but in effect decrypt the contents by being able to enter the passcode. Right, but they really gave it to the FBI, and I think I got a clue at the end of the hearing. By the end of the hearing, when I can't remember, I think it was Conyers, the chairman, made a comment, something to the effect of, "So the FBI is basically using the courts to do an end run around Congress," and that was very telling. So I think there was like a territorial, a feeling of, the FBI, we told the FBI this is the law, and the FBI is trying to, to use the courts to make their own law instead of going through Congress, and Congress is the legislative branch of our government. That's who makes the law. So it's very interesting. I think there was little underpinnings of territorial, but I also think that everybody felt that agreed that privacy is critical, that we have to protect privacy, and that if we, there's some argument that was made in the hearing that Apple is making it so easy for the terrorists by providing these encryption tools. So now the terrorists are going to suddenly have, but that argument just falls to the floor, and anybody who makes that argument just shows that they don't really understand the mechanism, because there is so one of the people at the hearing was, as I mentioned, this woman, Susan Landau. She's the professor from Worcester Polytech. She's a genius, so smart. Everything when she spoke, you could tell she really understood this at a really deep level. Well, one of the comments she made was that they asked her directly, if we did this, if we passed this law, would that solve the problem? In effect, would Apple not have encryption? Would the terrorists not have encryption who had iPhones? And she said, no. There's like 600 different encryption programs, encryption comm programs, communication programs out out on the market that are open source. And when it's open source, that means you could even take the source and make your own if you wanted to, right? So what Susan Landau was saying was that that no matter what, the cat's out of the bag, in effect. There are, no matter what you do to Apple, there's going to be encryption, and there's going to be encryption that Apple can't control. So to say, this is Apple's fault, or this is, Apple shouldn't be allowed to have encryption on their phones is foolish. And I think that there were clearly people in the room who got that, and there were people in the room who didn't get it. Fortunately, I got the sense that most of the people on this committee, very tech savvy, really got it. There were a couple who didn't. Okay, there was one guy. I don't want to mention his name.
Why not?
But,
no, stop. Public record. Mention his name.
Well, no. That's just not my nature, right? But I'll tell you what. There was one guy who just was struggling. No, it wasn't it.
Wasn't Isa?
No. He was actually he was great.
Okay.
I thought he asked really solid questions. I know there's people who don't like him. And he's got a very checkered background. Like if you go to his Wikipedia page, we're talking about Daryl Issa from Los Angeles, I think, right?
Yep.
Isn't that where he's from? I like the guy, but if you read his Wikipedia page, it's like it's truly a checkered past. Yeah. He's had real problems, but he's on the right side of this argument at the very least. But anyway, there was this one guy who clearly was struggling with the what does all this mean, and what exactly? Why doesn't Apple just open the phone? And why are they being so difficult like that? But that was the exception, right? That was the exception that really proved the rule. Another interesting guy was this guy. He's Louisiana, what is his name? I want to say Richmond. Cedric Richmond, I think, is a congressman from Louisiana. And there was this case in Louisiana. A woman named Brittany Mills it's like last April, was murdered. And maybe it was from a football player. I just can't remember all the details, but she was 8 months pregnant. She was murdered. And apparently the suspect or the killer was on her iPhone. Like somehow there was some information on her iPhone that revealed who the killer was, and they can't unlock her cell phone. It was a very big case, high profile case. And so this guy, Cedric Richmond, the Louisiana congressman, was very emotional, and he was directing his questions at Sewell, Apple's top lawyer, right? And it was really riveting to watch the back and forth, because what Richmond was saying to Sewell was, if you had the opportunity to save her life, if you could reveal her killer and capture her killer, would you unlock that iPhone?
Yep.
And Sewell's response, clearly he got it. He saw it. This guy was emotional. He wasn't crying, but you could see he felt this really deeply, like this happened on my turf, and this happened to one of my people, and and clearly he was very upset about it. But Sewell was like, I don't want to be a jerk to you or anything like that. I see how you're hurting here, but I can't help you here. I can't unlock this phone. I can't, we don't have what you need.
Yep.
But then, he kept pressing him and he said, if the FBI developed a method to brute force open the phone, are you okay with that? This is the guy, the Louisiana guy is saying this to the Apple guy. Are you okay if the FBI develops a brute force method to open that phone? And Sewell finally said, I'd have a problem with that.
Yeah.
It was really, really riveting and very, very interesting. And a sort of a sidebar. It's the terrorist argument. It's if you could break into the phone and there's a nuclear bomb that's going to go off and destroy a city if you don't do. It's hard to argue with that point, but privacy is just you can't have just a little bit of privacy. You once you break that phone, it's the cat's out of the bag. The bad guys will get it. They'll get the tool, whatever tool Apple develops. the bad guys will get it.
We've got a bunch of questions and comments from folks in both the IRC chat room and the Telegram chat room. Scott Thrift in Telegram says, Shawn, could you ask Dave if the court decision in the drug case, New York City, had any major influence on the FBI case? I know it did come up, folks. I was watching Dave Mark. We're talking to Dave Mark from The Loop. He did a great job yesterday on Twitter live tweeting this congressional hearing. I had no interest in watching it, but between you and Film Girl, I felt like I got a really good sense of what was going on. I know they did bring it up, but I don't remember exactly whether or not there was a sense that the Congress people involved thought that New York case had any bearing on this one. How about your sense of it?
I don't really have a sense of how it influenced them. But again, Shawn, an excellent question, and I mean that to Shawn in the chat room.
Scott.
Scott. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Scott. Yeah, but I will say that they did bring it up in the hearing, but they didn't really use it as a lever. Like they didn't say because of the logic that went into this case. This should, but they just made note of it. There was another case they brought up. There was a power. There was this power thing in the Ukraine where somebody hacked into the power grid.
Yep.
And basically turned off the power to 325,000 people or something like that. And they did it all online, and that also was brought up. But I don't think I don't think either of those cases really impacted the questions or the opinions of the people in the room. I think people came in with their minds pretty well set, and they framed their questions, I think, in a way that sort of walked whoever they were asking into their little trap.
Isn't that kind of the danger of these congressional hearings? That as far as I know, and I've watched and heard and read about a few of them, that's usually the case, and that's not necessarily a good thing, is it? These aren't hearings for the idea of the Congress people want are blank slates, don't know anything about the subject or don't know anything about what is being brought before them, and asking questions in order to be informed. They're sort of not grandstanding, all of them. Certainly some of them are grandstanding, but it seems like a lot of them, just from reading what you and Film Girl wrote, I could tell the political leanings of the person simply by the questions they were asking. That doesn't seem to be a good thing to me. Am I wrong in my understanding of congressional hearings?
I wouldn't say you're wrong, but I think certainly your take is correct. There's an agenda, right? Everybody has an agenda when they come into the room. In this case, I kind of think the agenda was to spank the FBI more than anything else.
Although Apple got spanked too. You pointed out on several occasions where Apple got spanked too. But I think the FBI getting spanked was surprising, wasn't it?
Interestingly, when Apple got spanked, I think they were the person who was doing the spanking. There were two guys, Sensenbrenner and Gowdy, I think was the other guy's name, Trey Gowdy. I think even those guys were on Apple's side. It was very odd interactions there. But basically, I think they wanted Apple to come in with a solution.
Yes.
They said as much. They wanted Apple to one guy was saying to Sewell, where's the legislation? You're just complaining about our legislation. Yes. Where's the legislation? Give me the legislation. And Sewell said, well, I'd be happy to help you put together some legislation and advise you in any way I can. No, I want the legislation now. Yeah. Sewell's like, but I didn't come here with legislation. I'm not a congressman. I'm a lawyer. That's not my job to do. But he said, Sewell. So at the Worldwide Developer Conference, how there's sort of Steve Jobs is the sort of the king of making presentations, yes. the best speaker in front of a room full of people. He has that charisma and the ability to sway people to his way of thinking. And then when Steve left before he died, but then when he died, there was this sort of vacuum, right? There was this who's going to do the talking now? Who's going to be up on stage and make the presentations? And it was a real worry. And Phil Schiller did it for a while. Phil was sort of he's going to be the main guy, but he was a little rough in the beginning. And then they got all the different players on Apple staff, but it was it was a question of who can really do a good job and be smooth and take over fill that void. And they've done a great job of Apple has done a great job of putting the right people on stage. Sometimes they stumble, but in general they've done a great job. But this guy Sewell, top notch. He was great. Now, he was in a congressional hearing. I'm not saying he should go at WWDC and make a presentation, but he handled everything perfectly. He was gracious. He was patient. He took a lot of bullets, and he just kept trying to keep them on track. And I think I tweeted this, but time was on his side because everybody only got 5 minutes. Yeah. So all he had to do was bear with the bad guys, with the sort of beatings he was taking for 5 minutes at a time, and then he would just wait him out, and he did a really good job. I was really pleased about that.
Dave Dykestall in the Telegram room says, "I'm not sure I understand the argument that if Apple develops the tech, quote, the bad guys will get it. Can't it be destroyed immediately?" That was a point that some of the congressmen were bringing up.
Yeah. Okay. So. And there was so much to talk about in this hearing. Like as I was typing and tweeting, it was hard to capture all of the subtleties of what people were saying. Yep. But an excellent point and question. But I'd say think of it this way. So here's how this would work. The FBI would go to Apple and say, build this operating system, this custom version of iOS, yep, right? That doesn't allow for the passcode, that disables the passcode, yeah, right? And then somehow, you'll give it to us on a hard drive, and then we'll inject it into the iPhone. And there is a way to inject a sort of a replacement operating system, yes, into an iPhone. That's sort of a key to this. And
basically jailbreaking the iPhone.
Yeah, in effect. Yeah. But jailbreaking it to iOS, back to iOS. Yes. But I'm not an expert at that. At that sort of thing. So I might be a little bit wrong, but I don't think I'm a lot wrong, yep, on this, right? So they inject this new version of the operating system. They reboot the phone into this new operating system, and then they would then have access to the phone. So the logic is, well, they put this on a hard drive and they give it to the FBI, and then on the way to the FBI office, 700 soldiers come in with machine guns and steal the hard drive. Yep. Take it by force, and now they've got the ability to inject into anybody's iPhone and take it over. That's sort of the thinking. And that maybe is a far-fetched scenario, but it proves the weakness.
I think it's even simpler than that, because once the FBI can force Apple to do this, and when we talk about bad guys, we're always talking about we're always thinking about criminals in a back alley somewhere, but there are different kinds of bad guys. What happens if the bad guy turns out to be, which is not beyond the realm of possibility, the government of China? What if the government of China comes along to Apple and says, hey, you can't sell any more phones into our country, which, by the way, is your #1 market, unless you give us what you gave the FBI? Apple can't, yep, say no to that, because they can't say we don't have the tool anymore. Because all the Chinese government would say is, we'll just back it up from the iCloud and give it to us on our hard drive. Don't think of bad guys as just being a criminal with a gun down on downtown east side of your city. Bad guys can be multinational corporations and governments, and I think that's to me, a much greater concern than someone hacking into Apple's servers and getting this, some Ukrainian hackers getting this. To me, the danger is a perfectly legitimate government coming to Apple and saying, hey, you did it for them, now you got to do it for us.
There's a lot of that. That's a great point, and there's a lot of those kind of points.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
There's the idea that, the way I think of it is that when if this gets out in the wild in some way, and then it gets on the internet, everybody's got copies of it now. Yeah. And all of the hackers, all of the bad actors, they all have copies of it. So to that question, I'd say that's really the biggest concern. Once the horse is out of the barn, there's no putting him back.
Dave D in the IRC chat room makes a great point. He says, Shawn, however, there's nothing stopping China from making the request anyway, except for the fact that for some reason, China follows the U.S. on these kinds of issues. If the U.S. won't do it, true, China won't do it. If the U.S. does it, China will do it. What Apple could say is, if the Chinese government came to them and said, do this for us, the Apple will say, I'm sorry, we wouldn't do it for the U.S. government. We're certainly not going to do it for your government. It works both ways. And China, most likely, according to the foreign policy folks I've read about this, would back down. They might make the request, but once Apple said, no, we don't have those tools, we wouldn't give them to the U.S. government, we're not giving them to you, China would back down from this.
So if we have time, I just have a couple of little other points I'd like to make.
Please do.
All right. So one thing is, there's this guy. I think he's also from Los Angeles, though I'm not certain. Ted Lieu, Lieu, congressman, and maybe San Diego, might be San Diego, but I can't remember where he's from. But he's got a degree from Stanford in computer science, and then he's got a law degree from Georgetown. Super smart guy. I think they should get him involved in this, because he's been writing about this on his blog, and I think he's just got a great mind, and Congress should use him, right? And then the other thing is, this woman, Susan Landau, who I think so highly of, I think either Apple should hire her or the FBI should hire her. and the reason I say that second part is because I think that one of the reasons Comey took these hits is because he was not showing his expertise here. He doesn't have the expertise, I think. That's the sense I got. They would ask him questions, technical questions, and he would say, well, I'm no expert. And they'd say, that's a terrible thing to say to Congress when you're the person charged with it. He would say things like, I have people who do that sort of thinking. I don't have that knowledge, but there's people. And then what Susan Landau said, which I thought was great, was that the FBI is like 10 or 20 years behind the times. Yep. That they do not have the understanding of what's happening, and they're a little lost. And clearly Comey was lost. I mean, I thought Comey did a great job. He was, as a person, he was like Sewell. He was very calm and reasonable in his tone, but he was a little lost in what was going on. And I to come in and advise.
I think one of the most interesting tweets I saw yesterday about this was, can you imagine what would happen if this had been any other company, any other CEO besides Apple and Tim Cook? Do you believe that any other company, any other CEO would push back this hard against their government? It would have been very easy for Apple to go, sorry folks, this is the FBI, we have a court order, we don't have a choice, we have to do this. It's amazing to me that, and it's scary to think that if this had been Google, Facebook, Twitter, Microsoft, any other tech company that has this kind of data about us, I firmly believe every other company would have rolled over.
No doubt. Just think about the fact that how long did Apple stand there with crickets in the background as nobody supported them. Yeah. It took a little bit of time, and then I think it became maybe a little fashionable. Maybe it just took time for the board meetings to happen, for these companies for everybody said it's okay to support Apple. They sort of had to make sure they were not putting themselves in harm's way.
Yeah, it's like these companies didn't think about this beforehand, that this issue hadn't come up in their meetings, either executive-wise or board-wise, and they just sort of realized, oh, shit, this is happening now, as opposed to Tim Cook, who's, we've said in the show many times, has been talking about this for 2 years. Dave, what happens next? Now that they've had this hearing, what's the next step, either for Congress or for this court case?
Well, all right, so the court case theoretically will move forward, right? Nothing's changed there. Yeah. But there'll be this whole sequence that happens, and it'll go to this court and that court, and there's obviously a well-regulated set of appeals, and ultimately this could wind up in the Supreme Court, which would be very interesting because of the state of the Supreme Court. We've got basically four on each side. We don't have a deciding vote, and so the rule in the Supreme Court is if there's a hung jury, in effect, if there's they can't make a decision if there's a split vote, then it goes back down to whatever the lower court ruled. That's what stands, which is, that's a terrible situation. You really want to have you want a proactive judgment from the court, not we couldn't decide. That's not a good way for this to end. But I don't know that it'll go that far personally. I think this will. Yeah, I don't think so. I used to think so, but now that I see how Congress acted, I think there's going to be a push for legislation, and I think so. Let me a little bit of a side thing here. This also came up that I thought was really interesting. Somebody, and it might have been Landau. I don't remember who made the point. Somebody made the point that it's good that this is happening now, right? Not to in any way minimize what happened in San Bernardino, but better to have this sort of measured, reasoned argument, discussion, conversation now rather than while we're in the midst of some crisis, where there, some nuclear device or a terrorist attack, a pending terrorist attack or whatever. Rather than that forcing everybody into sort of a panic, we're having the luxury of having this conversation. And so I think Congress, what the read I got from this hearing was, I think Congress is going to put together some legislation that prohibits a law, let's say, from requiring a backdoor, right? Prohibits a backdoor requirement.
I think your point is that this conversation would have been completely different on September 12th, 2001. Absolutely,
or September. Yes, absolutely. That's exactly what I'm saying. But I see Congress acting to right now. There's sort of this soft legislation about whether you can have a backdoor, but to vacate was basically their argument about why this shouldn't be the current law should be interpreted in this way. Well, what Congress wants to do is say, we don't want that anymore. We want a very clearly laid out law that says here's the rules, and that's what they should do. And hopefully this will happen quickly enough so that it makes the court case moot, because they'll address the points and in new legislation so that they don't have to argue about this anymore. And I think the sense I got from the hearing is that everybody's on side to legislate against backdoors, except for in France.
Yes, exactly. And that's the other thing too, is as we keep talking about, other companies are watching this case, hoping to be able to pounce on Apple because other governments think that the U.S. government is on the side of right here. And once the U.S. government wins this case, the other governments will be able to say, hey, you have to do the same thing for us that you did for them. So this is going to be an ongoing and interesting thing. Folks, we've been talking to Dave Mark from The Loop at loopinsight.com. Definitely read Dave's post on this. He did a great job yesterday. Him and the Film Girl did an amazing job live tweeting this stuff and really getting a really good sense of what was going on, the questions and the answers. I want to say thank you very much, Dave, for not making me sit through that stuff. I'm glad you had to, and it wasn't me.
Well, I had you in mind, Shawn, the whole time.
Thanks, buddy. Appreciate it. Yeah, I was amazed that Josh said that how fast a phone could be hacked. People are saying that what difference does it make if there's a timeout trial? But what happens if these bad players, these governments, get hold of Apple's tools? Then your phone can be hacked in 14 minutes if you've got a four-number passcode. It can be hacked in less than 24 hours if you've got a 6-digit numeric code. What you can do is, and I can't show you this on screen because it shows the numbers of my passcode, but on your iPhone, you go to Settings, and then you scroll down to Touch ID and Passcode. This is on iOS 9. And then it asks you to enter in your present passcode. So I'll enter in my 6-digit one. And then you scroll down to change passcode. And by the way, Mosquito asked me to do this for you folks. So then when you go to change passcode, it's got the 6-digit code in there now. But, sorry, it asks you for your passcode again, so I'll do it again. But at the bottom it says passcode options, and this is the key. You click on passcode options, and it pops up with 4-digit numeric code, custom numeric code, and custom alpha numeric code. And this is where you want to create a custom alpha numeric code. And if you can, as Josh says, a 10-character alphanumeric passcode on your iPhone would take 21,680 centuries to guess every combination. That's pretty secure. Now, the problem is not everyone knows or can remember a 10-character alphanumeric code. So what I've been telling folks is if you want to do this, do a shape on your phone. So rather than having to remember 5, 7, 9, 2, 4, 3, 0, do a shape. Do 2 circles, or a circle and a square, or the letter T and then the letter V. You know what I'm saying? Do it that way because it'll make it easier to remember a longer passcode that way. So give that a try. Thanks, Mo, for the idea. I also got an email from our good friend Ron Klutz, Captain Ron Klutz. As I keep pointing out, Your Mac Life is the only podcast that has their very own official pilot. Ron said, you answered a question about intimate pet portraits and the situation of trying to capture fast-moving pets. You said to use 1/500th or 1/1000th of a second, which is good, but then you said f11 or lower. That would be wrong. First off, what does lower mean? Smaller or bigger opening? It's confusing to someone like me that understands this quite well. Using f11 would most likely require a very high ISO for indoors. Maybe for outdoors, f11 might work. Maybe you were thinking the increased depth of field would assist here. You sometimes get confused regarding aperture opening size in relation to the number. And I've always found using the correct term of wide open for a small number and closed down for a big number to be better visualizing it. It may not be precise, but since f-stop is a ratio of lens opening to how much light gets past the aperture, f22 lets in 22 times less light than f1.8, it's easy to remember which way it goes. Maybe you're simplifying it for the audience, but I wanted to share. Ron, thank you very much. You're right. I did undoubtedly describe that incorrectly. The problem is aperture and f-stops are very confusing terms. They're mathematical relationships that don't translate into English very, very well. So let me try again. Changing the aperture on your phone, on your device, changes the depth of field of that device. And what depth of field is think about the thing you're focusing on, the thing, say, in the center of the screen. Depth of field is how much is in focus both in front of and behind that center thing. Okay? So imagine you're taking a picture of someone's face, a portrait, and you have your focus on one of their eyes, which was what you should. A small depth of field means that things that are in front of the eye to a certain degree are out of focus. Things that are behind the eye, the head, backwards, the trees, the bushes, the flowers, will be out of focus. Or in focus, depending on your f-stop, depending on your aperture. You control that as a photographer. You can decide how much you want in focus. That's part of the creative aspect of photography, is making that artistic decision of, hey, I want lots of things in focus, front to back of the subject in the center, or I want minimal things in focus. So think about a landscape photograph. You've seen a photograph of a beautiful mountain range, and there is a creek in front of you, and there's flowers, and there are rocks and stones and grass, and there's the mountain range. If everything in that image is in focus, it means it's got a greater depth of field, a large depth of field. Everything is in focus. Take a look at this picture. This is an example of a very narrow depth of field. You'll notice that the tips of the crayons. Can you guys hear me? Hello? Hello? You guys couldn't hear me right there, could you? Okay, you could hear me. Okay, why didn't that? Okay, now you can. So the tips of these crayons are in focus, and you can see the stuff in the background is out of focus. This means this is a very narrow depth of field, and that's controlled by aperture. So think of it this way. A small aperture number, 1.8 to 3.5, gives you a very small depth of field. A large aperture number, 11, 16, 22, gives you a large depth of field. Does that make more sense? So when you go to take a picture, you decide what you want in focus and how much depth of field you want in focus. So if you're taking pictures of these crayons, these pencils, and you want a little bit in focus, just the tips in focus, use a small aperture number. If you wanted all of these pencils in focus, you would use a large aperture number. So hopefully that might help folks a little bit more. MacMan points out a ISO cheat sheet that he has come up with that I've actually used in my classes too. You can see it on screen where the small, well, see, the problem is they say small aperture, but then they use a large number, and that's where things get confusing for folks. The way to think about aperture, the easiest way to think about aperture and these numbers is remove the F letter and put in 1 and a diagonal. Make it a fraction. Now it makes more sense. If you think of it this way, at F2, take out the F, put in a 1 and a diagonal. This is 1/2. So this opening is 1/2. You look at F4, take away the F, put in a 1 and a slash. Now it's 1/4. This is 1/4. Keep going up, 1/8, 1/16, 1/32. That makes it a more, so, and you know that 1/32 is smaller than 1/2. That helps a whole lot. MacMan says aperture size is inverse to the number. It's one of those things that you have to learn, have to bore into your brain, and then you'll practicing it helps a lot too. Practice taking shots with small aperture numbers, f3, f1.8, whatever your camera can do, and seeing how that affects the depth of field. And then practice with larger f numbers, f22, and seeing how that affects your depth of field. Captain Ron Klutz, thanks very much for pointing that out. I appreciate it. Appreciate you setting me straight on that. I like that. I want you guys to do that. If I say something that's confusing to you, please call me out on it and make sure I get it straight. We another story. Oh, sorry, other emails from you guys. Oh yeah, our friend Les Posen down there in Australia. Well, he's not in Australia right now. Right now, Les is apparently on some cruise ship listening to the show. Nice gig, dude. That's got to be fun. I got a question. What's the best tripod for DSLRs? You can go out and buy a $50 tripod at Best Buy. It's going to be a cheap plastic tripod. it might be good enough. The best tripods can run thousands of dollars. You want to find something in the middle. What you want is to find a tripod that is easy for you to use, that doesn't weigh too much, that its legs telescope and pop out fairly quickly for you. And there's any number of vendors that make tripods. Manfrotto is a big one. They're very, very popular among vendors. They don't make cheap tripods, either in the sense of inexpensive or in the sense of cheap plastic tripods. I've got one cheap plastic tripod that I use because it fits in the motorcycle side bags. That's the one I use when I want to go on the bike to shoot. And I've got a more expensive $200 tripod, Manfrotto, that I use when I'm serious about shooting. You want to find a tripod that has got 3 legs, that can have multiple segments to it. And by the way, when you open a tripod, don't open up the skinny legs first. Open up the thick legs first, and then work your way down. You also want a tripod that's got a center column, so you can hang something on it, so that it will be more stable and more steady. You want a tripod with legs that sort of move around, so you can put it on awkward surfaces. Lots of photographers will recommend what's called a ball head on the head of your tripod. You can buy a tripod separate from the rig that fits on the camera, so you might be able to find a deal doing it that way. Wayne says, don't all tripods have 3 legs? Yeah, but some have more than 3 legs. I've seen 4 legs and 5-legged tripods. Sherry says, I have a $50 tripod that's compact and works like a dream. Monty says, I bought a really inexpensive lightweight aluminum tripod, then bought a good head and replaced the cheap plastic one with that one. Yes, Wayne's, hence try. Yeah, but there are quad pods too. They're not as popular, obviously, as tripods. Buy whatever fits into your budget. Don't go, if you're just new to photography, don't go buy a $1,000 tripod. Buy something around the $100 range. That'll be good enough. It'll still probably be cheap-ish. Probably still made out of plastic. If you can afford carbon fiber, go for carbon fiber because they're light. Aluminum tripods tend to be physically heavier. If the tripod's too heavy for you to carry around, you're not going to carry it around. So I would rather go for smaller and cheaper than heavier at the same price. One of the problems I personally have is at 6'3", I want a tripod that I don't got to bend over so much for. So keep that in mind when you're looking for a tripod. You want to avoid using the center column on a tripod. So when you look for a tripod height, find out what the height is without the center column. Because with the center column up, your tripod's a little less stable. I know when I was shooting night shots here at the Pacific National Exhibit, our version of a state fair, there were several times when people had kicked my tripod, and there's a real danger of it tipping over if they kick it the right way, and putting a DSLR, 3, 4, 5 pound DSLR on the top of a center column increases the chances of it being really, really tippy. Lesh says mid-range enduro tripods and Acrotech ball heads. Sherry says, kick my tripod, there'll be blood. The problem is, if you're in a busy area like a fair, people might not even see the tripod. It's your responsibility as a photographer to set up in a place where folks aren't going to kick it, and also to always hold on to your tripod or have someone watching you and your tripod. You don't want to walk away from your tripod and have it kick off. Lesh also points out a ball head that accommodates any angles. You want a ball head because you want to be able to do all kinds of different angles on your camera. Some will only let you do this. The other thing you can look for is a level on your tripod. It's not necessary anymore because many of us have levels on our phones. But for the most part, you want to see a mechanical level that you can look at the top of it and make sure that it's set up right. Sherry says monopods are nice, and I disagree. I don't like monopods. Monopods are basically a single leg tripod. They'll have the telescoping effect of a tripod, but just with one leg. The good thing about monopods is they're obviously lighter, more compact, cheaper. But the problem with a monopod is it keeps your camera level in the horizontal plane, but it doesn't keep it level, keeps it level in the vertical plane, but doesn't keep it level in the horizontal plane. So it's still too easy for the camera to be moved around like that. So I'm not a big fan of monopods. I much prefer a tripod. As Sherry says, your mileage may vary. That's right. Absolutely. Thanks for the question. Jason Painter says, I don't care about VR. I think the commercial applications are very exciting. So either VR for gaming and AR for commerce. And we just heard today that Samsung has said none of their 2016 TV models will have 3D. I think that's the death knell for 3D. Samsung is the largest manufacturer of TVs in the world, and if they're not going to support 3D, no one's going to support 3D. It's going to be a dead format from a TV point of view. Maybe it'll stick around in movie theaters. I don't think it will. I think 3D in movie theaters is, for the most part, still thought of as a gimmick by Hollywood. And if there's no 3D TVs, maybe Hollywood goes, we won't make 3D movies anymore. I think VR is going to be the same way. I think virtual reality has a very specific niche, especially at the price point it's at now. It's a gimmick. If you use, for example, the Google Cardboard app, it is a specific gaming type apparatus, and that's at the high end. You're looking at $1,500 for the PC, at least $500 for the goggles. I still don't see average everyday people wanting virtual reality goggles. It will have a place in gaming and other particular what they call vertical markets, but I really can't see it happening in a consumer level product where you, the wife, and the kids will sit around the TV, the gaming rig, with VR goggles on. That's what, to me, is consumer level tech. Augmented reality, I can definitely see becoming a fairly popular thing, especially in things like cars, heads-up displays in cars and the like. But I don't get the whole VR kind of thing. Folks, I think that's it. Let me just check the email to make sure I got nothing else. Yeah, Robert Studer pointed out the audio was bad. Hopefully, Robert, you stuck with me and discovered what the problem was. Yep, I think that's it. Folks, sorry about the audio problems. It was my fault for not checking all my settings, not just my settings on my computer, but settings on Google Hangouts. I'll know for next time, and I'll see if I can't figure out some way to cobble this nightmare together to get a decent show out of it. Don't forget, the Telegram room is going to be open all week long. We're still playing around and testing out Telegram. You're more than happy to, anytime during the week, pop into the Telegram room and play around with it. Post stickers like folks have been doing, play around and text to me and chat to me when I'm in the room, chat to other folks who are in the room. I think this is going to transition our traditional IRC. We're going to transition into Telegram. So we want you to get involved in it. So please do. Wayne says, can those stickers be disabled? Wayne, yes, they can. You can go into your settings in Telegram, your preferences, and where it says stickers, you can, where to go? Sound effects, advanced settings. Oh, look at that. You can't get rid of stickers. Another bad side of stickers. You can unanimate GIFs, and you can make sure that folks don't auto-download certain things. But no, stickers are here to stay. And I'm not a fan of stickers. I'll be the first one to admit that. So we'll look into that. I know you can. Let me just see, make sure. You can delete a sticker. So at least in the Mac OS, you can right-click on the sticker and hit the delete button, and the sticker goes away, but that's on the user end and not controllable through the yeah. Wayne says it's a process where people spam a bunch. We're going to control that, Wayne. We're going to ask people to not do that as much as we possibly can. We don't want to ruin it for other folks. Stickers aren't necessary, just a gimmick. So I'm with you. I'm not a big fan of stickers. So thanks very much for joining, folks. I appreciate it. As always, send me emails to onair@yourmaclifeshow.com. I want to say thanks to Jim Dalrymple of The Loop and Dave Mark of The Loop for joining me on tonight's show. And until next week, as always, I've been Shawn King, and you've been tuned in to Your Mac Life. See ya!